welcome to my channel. And that is my makeup. So, a weird light, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Hi guys, let me center this so I'm in the center. I have been doing a Black Women in Marketing series because I know how important it is to speak to us, to make sure that we're aware of the access, insights, and just all the information out there, but also just to hear from like-minded Black women as well who are also in the space, such as myself, to tell you, you know, stories, experiences, and how I've navigated through that, overcome it, and continue to climb and evolve. I think it's so important because you can't be what you can't see. And in my time, specifically in the UK, I've seen very few Black women evolve in this space. A few in the US that I look up to and have had contact with and spoken to, which is great. But I'm thinking, after my generation, those that are in the early 30s, what are Black young girls who are starting in this industry? Who are they seeing? What do they have access to? What are they knowledgeable? Because you do come in the industry quite naive and you are slapped with some real experiences that can also be quite traumatic and detrimental to your growth. So I just want to make sure that I'm equipping you guys with the knowledge to help you evolve in your career. I thought I'd just finish this series and maybe I'll come back and do this again, learn and got more information. But I wanted to finish this series giving you a bit of a story time in terms of times when I've experienced challenges. The best way you can really understand the point of view where it's coming from is to understand where I've been and what I've experienced, right? And on a bit of a story time, give you guys a bit of insight into some of my past job roles, what I've experienced and how I've overcome. And there's two specific roles that I did where I was faced with some BS, serious racial bias and unconscious bias. Or even, I don't even like the word unconscious because it's conscious, okay? Let me get to the point of this video. So the first one was in fashion and the second one was out of fashion. So I want to make sure I'm giving a balance. I'm trying to make sure it is what happened to me. This one was I worked in fashion. I got a job as a press officer. You guys know this. If you watch my other videos, you should check it out. I went to school for marketing, but I interned in PR because there wasn't really a lot of marketing internships at the time, so PR was a nice entryway, right? So I did that and that was on my CV, so I felt like I was good at PR, didn't really have any issues for it. So when that role came up, I was like, do you know what, let me just apply for it because I can't get no marketing jobs, so let me just do it. And that's a great way to tap into fashion because PR and marketing always worked hand in hand. So I got the role, a very small British brand, but you know, up and coming, doing really well, so to speak. The founder had, you know, an accomplished background. And I interviewed, I remember what I wore. I wore my Louboutin Piguels, which I got after working as a Christmas temp at Mulberry in London. A black pencil skirt and a cream peplum top. Like I looked snatched, 10-10. So I did that, got the job. Started the job and it was fine till it wasn't fine. I can't remember the pinnacle moments, but there was two experiences that stood out to me that was very wild. The first one was my manager taking me out the office and going to like a lounge area, and it was like a one-to-one, and then she was just like, I need to know everyone that you're working with. Yes, I have to exaggerate like that because that's how she spoke to me. And I was like, okay. And just for context, I would blog on the side. So I was a fashion street style blogger on my blog, www.olivia-gold.com, which is still active today, so you can see it. And I was blogging content. And so I'd worked with brands, I've been gifted. I don't think at that time I'd been paid small gigs, but nothing quite, you know, detrimental anyway. So I was being gifted and I was working with a brand, a really cool brand. And I guess they followed me on my social media back then. It was like, you know, because it could be a conflict of interest. To give a bit of context to that as well, sometimes you do have to sense check your contract pertaining to the industry and category you're working, because if you have any side hustles that appear to be a conflict of interest, you do have to alert HR. And these days there's a lot more sophisticated processes for it. You just kind of give them background on what you're doing and they can assess if it's a conflict of interest, or there could just be a fair discussion. Whilst that process is correct and true, in my situation it wasn't a conflict of interest because I wasn't being paid for any of the work that I was doing at the time. I was being gifted and was on the way to be paid. Second thing was, and then that's when she kind of, after that meeting, she really started to micromanage me, make sure she CC'd on every emails. I had to make sure, obviously, I sign off anyone that I'm sending samples to with her, all of that stuff. And while obviously some things are major, for the standard magazines, it was just quite normal, but she wanted to be in on everything. And looking back, I felt that because she was an online content manager and she's always wanted to work in fashion. I think she just wanted to look like the top dog within the team to the boss, who was the main designer. Then the second thing that happened within that role was someone I knew was styling Maya Jama at the time, so she was aware that I was a press officer at this brand. So she reached out to me and was like, girl, can you give me some stuff so I can style her? And at the time, she's not as big as what she is now, Maya, but she was doing really well then. She was on her way for sure. You could see it if you were aware of the culture and the, you know, different media, different places, brands, TV, more online content programs that she was hosting. I reached out to my manager like, hey, can we gift? And she was like, no, we don't work with people like her. And I was like, this was in like within the first 3 months, so I wasn't as vocal to push back, because you just want to ride through, make sure you pass probation. So I let that go, but I was just like, you don't even know. You don't even know. So that was that situation. Then the third situation, the big one. So it was a normal day and I got called into the room, and it was my manager, this person who positioned us, the HR manager, new business development manager, the office manager. She was all roles in one, basically the founder's best friend, and then the founder herself. And it was all 3 of them and then just me. And I came in, brought in my notepad thinking, okay, maybe there's a task that I need to work on. And they were like, oh, we just want to check in and see how you're doing. And I was just like, yeah, like, great, fine. And they were like, yeah, we don't think, like, you know, you've changed since, you know, you've been hired. I was like, how? May I ask? And they were like, you know, you're not as bubbly around with the team. You don't really go out for lunch and things like that. I was like, I just went out for lunch with the team. We all went to the street market and all got food together. And then they were like looking at each other like, oh, that one didn't work. And then they were like, you know, you work in fashion, there's like a certain way that you need to be. I'm not sure if you know, but you know, the people at Vogue, they're bitches. We're not bitches here. Like, we're really nice and we make it super easy for you. We want you to give more. We want you to be more bubbly. We want you to be more this. Like, I was sitting there like, what is going on? Like, what are they talking about? And it'd been maybe like 6 to 8 weeks since I've been in this role. I'd gone to the meetings I was supposed to. I haven't had a day off. I'm like, what are they talking about? And it's different if someone's talking about your work and saying things about that. That's a bit different, because at least there's facts, there's evidence. If there's need for improvement, they can call it out. They did not call out one piece of work, one piece of email, nothing. They just kept talking about me, and I was just like, like, what's the issue? What's up with the tussle energy? And I was like, okay, fine. And they're like, yeah, like, we're just gonna, you know, we'll work with you, we'll do all of this, like, we just want to make sure you're set up for success, along those lines. And it was just so, I was so dumbfounded, because I was like, what was this conversation about? And in hindsight, if I go back, they already had made their decision. They already had that perception of me, whatever it was. And I guess what I didn't realize back then, which I know now, they were just having a meeting so on paper they could establish that they've had a conversation with me, right? You follow it? So I remember I went home that day and I got on the train, got off at my train stop, and I usually get the bus because I didn't have a car then. And then I didn't even get on the bus, I just walked, because I was so dumbfounded by this conversation at the end of the day. And I just felt like they had cut me down a size and just debilitated my confidence. Like, what I thought I was doing was fine, I was interacting with the team, and they've just told me everything that I was doing I wasn't doing, but had no evidence. They were just spewing things, but then trying to reassure me that because they're not bitches the way Vogue is, then I should be happy. So I was like, what else do they want me to do? So I remember I walked home and I saw my friend as I was walking home, so I was talking to her about it. She was giving me like the best advice. I remember calling my friend when I got home, and she was just like, Olivia, this is not the place for you. Like, as much as we know fashion has its, you know, downfalls, like, that is not it. In my mind, because I'm a hard worker, I was like, maybe I just need to step it up a notch and just show them, because this is my chance. So I kind of took it in and tried to work harder. Don't even know what that meant. So I was in the office, I was there, all of that good stuff. So then the big moment was day press week, showcasing new ready to wear collection and also bridal collection. I was sorting out the shoes and all the accessories, and my manager was sorting out specifically the bridal stuff, but I was sorting out the ready to wear. So when we got to the hotel where we were setting up, and my manager was like, crap, where's the dresses? And I was like, what dresses? She was like, the bridal dresses. I was like, well, I've been sorting out ready to wear. She was like, no, you needed to get the bridal ones. I was like, no. I was doing ready to wear, you were doing bridal. And she was like, yeah, but we were all in the office, we were all there. And I was like, well, what do you want me to do? And then basically we had to choreo the bridal dresses. Someone in the office had to bring them over. We made it just in time for the press day to start, and I stood at the door, obviously greeting media, press, influencers to come in. It was really intimate. That was that. The press day went on, finished it, worked till the end. Then it was the next day in the office. Walked in, sat down, missed a bit. You know when I said that I met with them, had that meeting, it was all three of them and then it was me. Then what happened the next day was my manager took me upstairs in the morning. She was like, I know yesterday's coffee, you know, I know yesterday's chat was really intense, but you know, we're doing this to like set you up for success. I had a manager before that was really mean to me and like would make me cry, but you know, it really did me well, like da-da-da. And I was like, so because you were treated like shit, you're basically telling me that you're going to treat me like shit, but it's going to be for my benefit. Mad. I was just nodding at the time, wasn't saying anything good. She was like, you know, we're gonna make this work. And I was like, make what work? Now I know you were just BSing. They knew what they did was wrong, but she was trying to basically cover herself. Getting back to the press event, that happened. So what happened the next day is I come in, they're like, oh Olivia, let's go in and have a chat. I was like, cool. I went in and then they were like, it's not working out, but why? And then they were like, oh, I forgot the bridal dresses for the press day. And yes, it's why everyone has their different areas. It's everyone's responsibility. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, but I remember I was just like, what? I was doing the ready to wear with the shoes, which all arrived. But so she was like, yeah, but you were in the office and you did walk past the boxes. I was like, we all walked past boxes as we were picking, carrying it, moving it to be couriered to the venue. And they were like, yeah, it's just not working out. And I was like, okay. So I left, and that was me leaving that role. This is where it gets even more interesting. So the next day after that, I'm at home because I ain't got no job. And then I get flowers to my door. Dad opened the door. He's like, Olivia, there's flowers for you. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, from who? And he's like, I don't know. They picked up the flowers and there was a card. So sorry that it didn't work out. And they put from so-and-so team. I was like, okay. So in a real establishment, if you're not performing and you are let go, there's a couple of processes that needs to be followed. You need to get a warning, you need to get a written warning, you need to be put on a development plan, and then the proof needs to be shown that you haven't met your development plan. Then the business makes a business decision to let you go. Fair, whether you like it or not, from a professional standpoint, that's just what it is. One, they didn't really follow that process. Yes, they did that in-person meeting, but there was no documents. Second of all, you let me go. Thirdly, you send me flowers. In what professional establishment do you let them go and send them flowers? If I knew what I knew now then, oh honey, this would be a completely situation. Them sending me flowers is evidence of guilt. And the fact that there's a note saying, sorry, it didn't work out, blah, blah, blah. That's not based on performance. That's not based on grievance. That's just based on personal decision and whatever. So whilst the business can do what they want within the first 3 months of that probation period or 6 months, whatever period it is, there still is a process that needs to be followed. And when there's not, the employee still has grounds to stand for something and raise a complaint. At the time, I wasn't equipped with the knowledge that I have now, so I just let it go. Looking back, the racial bias that kept popping up at all of these moments I'm explaining was insane. It was so loud, but at the time, because I was so driven just to work hard, I just was kind of blind to it. And then the flower thing happened, as I've mentioned. At the time, I was speaking to a couple people that worked for PR Week and had My Life of a Marketing Girl platform, where it was writing blogs, things like that. So I did a piece with them just talking about my experiences and just how hard it is for Black, young, male and female to get into the space. This is something I've always been campaigning for and talking about. So I did the piece and it was published. I don't know why. I went on the employees' Instagram page. Lo and behold, to find out that I was blocked. And manager, old manager clearly, had also blocked me. Really, they were worried that I would out them and talk about my experience. So I think it's like they wanted to erase me from ever being there, but they had so much guilt built up because not only did they send me flowers, that year was the World Cup, and sometimes when you're in businesses and companies, you put in like £2 around the office, and obviously you take a name out the hat, and that's the team that you think is going to win, and whoever's team wins, you collect and get the money. That's how you know God is on my side. How come that year the team that I picked out the hat won? It was Portugal that year. Just kept texting me like, hey Olivia, are you home? I'd love to drop you something. And I was like, who is that? And then that was the designer, the CEO's PA. So she kept texting me, but I wasn't at home at the time. So I got home, and then my dad was like, there's something for you. There was an envelope of the winnings from this, I forgot the name, you guys know, you know, like what it is, of the winnings. If that's not another element of guilt, I do not know what is. So they were so guilty with what they had done. They obviously wanted to make sure I got my winning. Not that I even like remember the team that I pulled out the hat, or I cared at that point after I've been let go and I'm moving on with my life. And that experience just really opened my eyes to, one, as employees, you also need to know your rights just as much as a business knows their rights, because they can also plan and position things to make it look like they're following protocol. And it's up to us as employees that making sure you're also documenting that they are following protocol, or documenting that they are not, so you can also hold them accountable. And at that time, I didn't know any of the rules, what I know now. So that was one thing. Two, the admission of guilt through these gestures after you've let someone go was just insane. Like, who gets flowers? You let someone go when they're leaving. And it was just very immature, and the fact that they blocked me, I blocked them. When Black Lives Matter movement happened, and a lot of business were being completely annihilated for their lack of diversity and inclusion, that said company got it bad. Because if you think about it, when I was there, I was the only black woman, and there was a black man, but he was in finance. Business never had any diversity of models, just white women, not Asian, not black, not Latino, not anything. Of course, ready to wear and bridal, which was disgusting. And if you think I'm the press officer at the time, speaking to media, speaking to press, trying to get the product on said celebrity, said media, said styling shoots, they wasn't even thinking about other races, just thinking about who she sees, which is herself, which is very telling. And it also is very telling in terms of how I was treated. The real culprit was my manager, because she threw me under the bus to save herself, when obviously she was accountable for, you know, making sure the bridal dresses made it, but she pinned it on me. The second one was when I was a contractor at a company within the public sector for the role, and this was actually shortly after that. So I took 9 months to find a job. I did freelance within that time. I did my own project at that time, and then I took some time out to find a job. 9 months I was out of work during that time, and then I got a contract job. So I applied for that, I got it. It was brand campaign support manager, assistant manager. Got the job, fine. At the time, the business was going through a merger, and when that happens, a lot of politics begins to unlock. So while that was happening, I remember when I started, I didn't clock it, but it links like a couple months later. I basically, my signature, when I was setting up my emails, when I joined, it was like Olivia, my title. And when I sent an email to a colleague, my manager saw it, and she was like, oh, Olivia, you need to change your title, that's wrong. And I was like, no, I don't. That's my title. So that got escalated, and I had to speak to the head of marketing, and she was like, excuse me, the role you have, like, why do you have that role? And I was like, that's the role I applied for. I was like, what kind of BS is this? You don't apply for a job, get the job, and then you're kind of questioned on it there for a reason. I kept questioning it. Just need to understand what's happening here, because I shouldn't be questioned on what my job role is. The business was going through a merger, and at the time, that team and the wider team had a lot of middle management. And you have to understand, when a merger happens, the new business comes in, and they usually hire their own senior C-suite. and then the people that are merging to the new company currently basically have to apply for jobs again, specifically if the scale or team structure is not the same, because then you might not be guaranteed a job as the company merges. So when I reflect and look back and knowing the knowledge I know now, I was collateral damage for politics, because me, my manager and those colleagues all wanted to keep their jobs and make sure even when the business merges to the other company, they still have the same jobs. But if I'm a new person coming in as an assistant manager, I'm also eligible for that same job. To avoid and to compete, they wanted me to sit as an executive as a title, even though that's not the job I applied for and not the salary I'm getting. That's how deep the politics was. They don't even care that I'm probably making the same money as them. They just didn't want me to look just as senior on their bandwidth level, so that when the merger happens, they can get the manager job and I could be an assistant. From when that happened, I was like, I need to get out. So I was applying for jobs on the side, but while this was happening, I still had to go to the job. This was before COVID, before we all had to work from home, so I was in the office 5 days a week. And it was treacherous, because they were basically bullying me, micromanaging me, to force me to change my title, and I was not doing it, and trying to find error in my ways to show that I'm not manager level. Couple of examples was, one of them was every email I read, the head of marketing asked me to email it to my manager, who was also an assistant manager or support manager. So me and her had the same title, but what happened, they changed and made her my manager. So it created an order, which was just, now looking at it, like the micromanaging and just the microaggressions were loud. Every email I read, when I mean every email, they made me send it to her for her to sense check it and then send it back to me, to the point where it got so tedious. Like, she would do it, but you can tell she was just forced to do it, but she was still playing along with it, so you're not no better, you were complicit. To the point where she'd be like, yeah, that's fine, just change this word, and you were asking me to change it not for grammar, just based on preference, which is stupid, because you are who you are and I am who I am. But that's what I had to do, so that's what I was doing. They would also get HR to message me to have a chat about this job name, and I was like, I'm not doing this, I'm just not. So what happened was, I ended up having a big meeting with the head of marketing. I ended up meeting the head of marketing. I got on holiday, came back, and luckily I had bagged a new job. I was waiting to tell her that I'm handing my resignation. The joy. And then came back from holiday, she's like, I want to have a chat with you, and I was like, here we go. But I had the news in my back pocket. So then she was like, you know, we have gone through the process, we have looked at everything, and when you applied for the job was always supposed to go out as a marketing exec. So, you know, we've gone through HR, we've gone through the evidence, we've done this, we've done that, and yes, but on your side it was marketed as a brand support manager, but we realised there was an error in the system, so it was the system's fault now, and this is what the job role was going to be. So she wanted to make me sign something to basically say I'm accepting this. I was like, do not do that. If you do not agree to anything, never sign it, and never respond on email either. So I had a lawyer. I asked a lawyer and she gave me all of this information. So I sat there, and then I was like, oh, it was great, we had this conversation, but I will be handing in my resignation today as I've got a new role. Her face went red, she was not ready for that. And I was just like, you think I was sitting here gonna be submitting to all of this trauma and microaggressions that I'm experiencing? Hell to the no. So I handed in my resignation, and based on that, the new role is gonna start in 4 weeks. So I was like, so this is my 4 weeks. And then she was like, well, as a brand support manager, you know, your resignation time is 3 months. I was like, so now you're playing games. So when I was in the business as a brand support manager, you wanted to degrade me to be an exec. Now I'm leaving, now you're telling me my resignation time is a brand support manager. What's this about? I sent my email to resign. they got HR to message me like, hey Olivia, you know, we just want to align with you based on what your role is, your resignation time. The lawyer that I confided in said, do not write back. From when you confirm on email your last day is your last day, that is it in writing. And there's actually nothing that they can do. They want to escalate, they can, but it's going to cost them more money to do that instead of collaborating and negotiating a time when your last day is. So I remember having a meeting with her and she was just like, so when's your last day? And I was like, the last day is the one I said in my email. And she was like, but in your contract as a brand support campaign manager, it's 3 months. I said, but I'm an exec. And she turned to me, she goes, ooh, you want to play that game? I was like, she's a witch. She's a witch. Sorry, those that are Black and African know. Anyone like that, that's a witch. So, and she was like, oh, you want to play that game? And I was like, no. Basically, she was just trying to play me. She stood my ground. And she literally walked off. And it was like me, my line manager, and her, the head of. She was known to be really scheming. And really taught me to stand up for myself. Because in those moments that I'm explaining to you, it's easy for me to say it now. But at those moments, I was like shitting myself. Because you just don't want to have any confrontation. You don't want any bad energy. You don't want to go into a workplace and having to be argue or fight for yourself, like fight for your right to be in a place that you interviewed and you actually got the job. Like, come on, like that's insane. Wild. And it really took a toll on me mentally, because I applied for the job, I did the task, I got the job, I'm doing the job, and now I'm in the job. The people that I'm working with are tormenting me about the job I'm doing because they think I should be on the lower level, which is so disheartening, so discouraging, and wasn't healthy for me. So I was like, I knew I needed to leave as soon as I had that experience. So it did take me a while to find a role, and I was in that role for 9 months. I left, but that, even when I handed in my resignation, I still had to do with the backlash and the pushback from management trying to mess with me in terms of how long, you know, I was going to work my notice. But I was like, it's very dependent on how it worked for them. I was like, you're not going to do that. Like, I have rights as an individual. So I'm so lucky that I sought legal advice, and I had someone in my back pocket, and every day I would call. I was like, this happened today, that happened today. And they were like, just, that was another situation where I knew I had to get out and leave that environment because they were so toxic. They were trying to push me and basically demote me so that all the rest of them could look like their management. So when the merger happened, there was 2 people in the business that really had my back, and I went to, and I was just really honest about how I was feeling. And one of them literally sat with me at a lunch and literally read through my CV and kind of tweaked it, because she was like, yeah, you do need to get out. And she stayed there, but she could just see the plot that was happening. It was a really lovely white lady who, honestly, I would always accredit to being such a soundboard for me. And then there was another Black man. He was leaving, and I was telling him what was happening, and he like coached me. And he ended up telling me that that head of marketing was also leaving. And I was like, wait, what? So she's leaving, but she's trying to sabotage me from leaving on a new opportunity. Do you know how wicked that is? And that for me just really messed with me, because I was like, I'm trying to do this job that I've applied for and got. While I'm in the job, you're making my life hell. I'm trying to leave, and you're also making my life hell. This was a situation that really weighed heavy on me, and I had to deal with overcoming that because they were being so vicious towards me, and I was collateral damage for their own opportunity and climbing the ladder, which they're entitled to. But what you're not going to do is, you know, micromanage me and be toxic in how you do it. So I've experienced that in many ways, and those were 2 places, 2 jobs, in 2 phases of my life that were quite disturbing. Because one, the first one, you create a perception of me, God knows what that is, but we all know it's very coded. Then you kind of coerce to push me out and blame me for an error that you made, but of course you wanted to look like the good person, and then I'm the villain. Then the second one, I was collateral damage for politics that was happening in the business. In their mind, they thought it was easy to do that to me as the Black girl, trying to create narratives that, you know, I make grammar errors when there wasn't, to making me write an email, send it to my manager before I even sent it out was just insane. And then also trying to make me change my job title, even though the job I applied for, the contract that I signed, was a specific title, just so I don't look as senior as them. To the point where I remember one time in that job, every Monday we need to send out the report on obviously ticket sales and against marketing for finance. So I was trained by the finance team on how to do this report. So I sent it out on the Monday. and everyone's on email. The CFO, the head of marketing, everyone is on it. I remember the head of marketing sent me the most passive aggressive email saying that this is wrong and that I'm going to need more training because this isn't right, to the point where I remember that time in the office, the girl that sat behind me, she turned around, she was like, what the hell? The finance controller turned around and she said on the email, she was like, this is the calculation, Olivia was right. Her face in that office went red, that she didn't even know what to say. Did she reply on that email? No, she just kept quiet. So it was like she was looking and trying to do the most passive aggressive things to undermine me. But you know, when it comes to finance, numbers don't lie, and I didn't lie. But for me, that was another point and evidence to show the attempts that were being made, and actually was so loud that other people in the business were seeing it. I share these stories, I just share them for other people who have dealt with microaggressions in the workplace, who've had toxic experiences that's played on your mental health, because it's not easy, you know. You want to go in and you want to get the job done. And someone did a TikTok on this the other day and it was just so profound. It's just like, as a black woman, when you're quiet, it really alerts and triggers them, and your quietness and your obedience is seen as a problem. And the reason is because they're not used to people like you. They probably don't interact with many like you outside of the workspace or in everyday life. They're intrigued, but because they can't unpick you or decode you, your silence stresses them out because they can't figure you out. The more they can figure you out, the more they have control of you. But when you don't give them anything, they have nothing to work with, and that is madness in their mind. And it's unfortunate because then you can't feel relaxed. But I will say it's important that you establish boundaries and know how to really manage yourself in those situations, because not all work environments are like that. Most people are normal and have normal lives, and even if they don't have many black or brown friends, they just know how to deal with you as a normal human being. But unfortunately, there are ignorant, stupid, to be quite honest, and racist people out there. Unfortunately, some of them are in the workplace, some of them could be senior leaders, can be colleagues, and you just have to find boundaries to establish to keep your mind at ease. And that's something I had to learn, and that was through these experiences. But the one thing, if you didn't get anything from these stories, is always advocate for yourself, always document everything, and 3, always find allies. Even if it's just one person, it's better than none. But even if you don't have allies, what always will cover you is a good ass email. So make sure you document everything that happens, because that is going to save you. It would be good to share stories so you understand where this advice is coming from, where the experience is coming from, and the challenges I have overcome, because you know, we live in a very interesting society where we meet amazing people, but unfortunately sometimes you experience bad bosses, and bad bosses are detrimental to your career growth. I believe you can only be as good as your manager allows you to, and unfortunately in some environments managers really affect your growth. They really affect your comfortability, your stability, if that's what you're looking for in your job. And it's important that you identify that very early on and understand what you're going to do if you have that information. Can you move out of that role? You raise it, can you flag it so something is done? Always make sure you document it, because it will just cover your ass. As black women specifically, as we climb the ladder, just make sure you're really looking after your mental health. You have the right allies in the business, but most importantly, you have the right family and friends around you to support you as that happens as well. And you are standing up for yourself where it matters. So, employees, we have rights too, but you need to know that. That's the only way you can advocate for yourself and stand up for yourself in those trying times. Specifically, if people are being discriminatory towards you, there is abuse, there's aggression, make sure that is flagged and documented, because there is standard human rights and no one has to deal with that in the workplace specifically. That is just not on. So I'm hoping this gives you a bit more insight, does empower you, and just even relate to it, because you know, specifically in the marketing space, and they dealt with the shorthand, and it's just not fair. It really isn't fair, and I'm sick of it. I hope this video interesting. Watch part 1 and part 2, because that's where I'm really dropping you the keys. Part 3 is just story time to give you guys a bit more of an inside scoop in terms of my career and my challenges, of how I've overcome them and still shining, period. But please like and subscribe. Like, come on, this can't be a community if you're not really invested. So we need to see those numbers go up. I'm really trying to finish on 1,000 by the end of the year, so let's see if you guys can help me do that. And excitingly, I have an event happening on Monday the 25th. Make sure you're following me on Instagram to find out what it is, because there is a link there for you to tune in, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.